All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Camp Content. Today we have Lance Lambert, a content marketing guru who's navigated the digital and cannabis realms with finesse. With experience in big name brands like Weed Maps and a knack for taking business global, Lance is the go-to expert for all things marketing and business development. His journey from mainstream media to the thriving cannabis scene is not just a career transition, but a testament to his passion for telling stories and building brands. Lance's recent endeavors at Grove Bags has shown his commitment to expanding into new markets while keeping an eye on emerging trends worldwide. Having weathered the storm of cancer, congratulations, cheers to that, and embracing the benefits of cannabis firsthand, Lance is not just a marketing maven, but an advocate for a healthy lifestyle. His engaging presence at Express and convention at expos and conventions reflects his dedication to connecting with like-minded individuals in the industry. And if you follow his LinkedIn, you'll see that firsthand. He doesn't just talk the talk. So grab your camping gear and get ready to deep dive into the world of content marketing with Lance, a professional powerhouse with a personal triumph under his belt. Welcome to the show.
That was a mouthful. Thank you for having me.
I love these intros. They're a little fun. Well, that's fun, right? I get to take all the stuff you gave me and kind of give it back to you in a different way, right? You know, so
for sure.
Right on. Well, welcome to the show. I've been looking forward to this since we connected on LinkedIn, just because I've been watching all your content and seeing you move around. Like, this guy is serious, and then of course I have a vested interest in the work that you're doing. So before we really get started, let's talk a little bit of shop about the business. So how many employees are under the Grove Bag umbrella?
Well, we're in SMB, so we just have a few dozen, I'd say, or so. So we're definitely on that scaling up side of the business, and that's a big part of me coming on and joining this company. And what I've done with other companies in the past, like you mentioned, Weed Maps and several Green Bros, Green Flower, several in this category. But I come in and scale up the companies, take them into exponential growth mode. And I've been here now. My 2-year anniversary will be in exactly a month. It goes by so fast, as you know. You sound like you're kind of connected to the industry as well. I came from .com. I did digital media for a decade, and I thought that was fast paced and forever changing. But my gosh, the cannabis, it's dog years 2x. It really goes by quick, just because things are constantly changing. It's as if you're playing a game and they're always moving the goalposts and flipping the rules around every period. But yeah, definitely been enjoying it. So we are a business that's been around since 2016. So we've actually been here for quite a minute. We've got our products now in 67 countries around the world, which has been a huge success of obviously not just myself, but a great team managing the international side of the business. So we've been enjoying it. It's been a fun ride, but it's been an adventure. You've seen, like you said, you follow me. I just came off of 5 weeks of travel between Europe and in the US, and I'm ready to take a break and get a breath in for a minute.
I was like, man, this guy just never stops going. He is on the path, man. So, and good for you. I mean, that's what it takes to get it done. You gotta show up in those spaces. It's a cumulative thing, right? You show up in enough of them, and then you're just meant to be there. And then you're the guy, and then that's you miss too many of them, and people forget about you pretty quickly. So.
Yeah, it's you're right. I always reference, I've never mentioned out loud, but everyone I think kind of has a relevance meter, and I've seen individuals that have been in this space for some time. I just celebrated my 10-year anniversary of being purely in the focus, of cannabis industry for for that length of time. And it is interesting because some people kind of just get settled in, or what they're doing is a little bit less forward facing. So you're right, staying active, being out there, but it's a big part of building a brand. I mean, it's the whole day and age of managing behind it, even as a chief marketing officer, right? People are like, well, don't you have someone that would do this job, or don't you have someone to do this trip? And I'm like, well, I do, but they don't have my network. They don't have my know-how. So I want to take them out and show them. So I have these individuals that I mentor for success to someday, obviously take my role. So it definitely is an adventure, but you're right. You have to be out there. You have to maintain that relevancy, not just as an individual, but as an entity. So
you really do. And I'm feeling that moving to Costa Rica 3 years ago. I'm like, I need to go back to DC more often and show my face. Otherwise people think I'm on a boat with a drink in my hand every day. And
yes.
As much as I wish that was true, it is not. I'm still working. So don't forget about your girls. So yeah. Well, and it's always nice. It's always nice when you see people at conventions and you're like, I haven't seen you since the last one, but you're still really happy to see them. Yeah.
Yep, it's true. I just had that. Speaking of Latam, I have a friend Javier Haas who's based out of South America, Argentina. But I just did a tour with him and a bunch of influencers. My gosh, out of Argentina, Chile, Colombia, Mexico, and Spain, and we did a tour up into Costa Brava, which is the region, just Catalonia region, but just north of Barcelona to the French border. And here I was just with Javier Haas in Llorona over there, and then just seeing him at Benzinga in Hollywood Beach, Florida. And it's so weird because you don't skip a beat. You're like, even though I just saw you in another country and was speaking another language with you,
Right.
here we are in the States. And that's the stuff that keeps me going, to be honest, though, is these mini reunions. And I literally, I reference them as tours, right? So that trip to Spain, it's a pilgrimage every year. It's for Cannabis, which is at the moment the largest show in Europe. I think Mary Jane's got their number and going to take that over, especially Germany legalizing. But, I do these tours every year. There's individuals I ran into that I've done tours in Australia, in Chile, in the US, in UK. And to see them, it's like seeing old friends. And some of them we do business together, and others we just help each other out, sending those opportunities back and forth. But that's really what keeps me going. That and the passion for the plant as a medical patient, is really what keeps me motivated, because this is not an easy, everyone thinks it's all fun and easy money and everything's green. It is not an easy industry. It's one of the hardest I've ever been in, but one of the most rewarding, right? It's funny how that works. The hardest challenges are obviously in many instances the most rewarding in our lives. So it's cool.
And nothing good worth having comes easy, right? Isn't that the quote?
This is
something along
true.
those
Yeah.
lines.
Very
Yeah,
true.
well, because it's such a demonized line of work, but at the same time, it's medicine for people. So it depends on who you're talking to, right? So to be able to kick down some of those doors and change some minds and get people access and just
Exactly.
destigmatize the whole operation, because enough already.
Yes.
You know what I mean? What is this, 1954 again? Like,
I
come on.
know it's the reefer madness. And it's unfortunate because, a lot of people think that we started it, and you can go back to, I think we're a couple of Gen Xers, you can go back to our war on drugs, which was the DARE program, Nancy Reagan and James Watson, the officer out of LA
And Mr.
that
T.
actually came up with that idea. But even before that, the prior generation, it was the Nixon war on drugs back in 71. But we can go back to our grandparents, and it was the Anslinger war on drugs, which was the original reefer madness back in the 20s and 30s. But even before that, it was actually Napoleon. It was France that started the original war on cannabis. So it's something that's been around for a while, but it's interesting. You mentioned that stigmatization of this plant, because it's not everywhere. It is more so in Commonwealth countries. You go places like Prague in Czechia, or Czech Republic as Americans know it. And they have, I'll never forget this, they have an event over there called CannaFest. We have some really fun names for trade shows in this industry, as you can tell. And I remember walking in as a beautiful fairgrounds facility that they have there. And as soon as I walked in, there was a pop-up child daycare facility that was there with children from ages, 2 to maybe 8. And I was taken aback, because even in California, even in the socialist state that I live in, even in California, I think Child Protective Services, CPS, would definitely be called if they saw that. But in a place like a country like Czechia, the former communism, Eastern Bloc, and for them to not have that taboo or that stigmatization around the plant, and just take it serious and say, hey, this is a medicine. There's people that work. This is their livelihood. They have families, but they still need to work.
Let them get the medicine. Yeah. I mean, they sell beer at Chuck E. Cheese. You know what I mean? You
so beer at Disneyland now.
Yeah. Like, okay. How is that any better? I'd rather, good Lord.
Very true.
Let's talk about, your personal experience with cannabis. Like, so were you always in the cannabis industry, or was it your battle with cancer that put you there?
That's a funny story. I grew up in Northern California, surrounded by hippies, including my mom, which I used to is back in the 80s. So that was the birth of the yuppie, and the hippies were so 60s, early 70s. So we kind of teased, from the chahuli oil or whatever, that they wear to the drinking kombucha and eating rice cakes. And I used to joke around all the time. And then now I find myself like, I'm into all that. Like, I'm like, wow, they're onto something. But no, it was always around me. And technically it's part of how I was able to save up to go to school. And ironically, I studied criminal justice in college, so I had to take a bit of a break, a long tolerance break. And so I ended up eventually got into marketing and media, digital media. And so I was in that space for about a decade. And it just worked out to one of my SVPs at Scripps, a phenomenal company, one of the bigger publishers in the US. She had gone on to become the SVP of Digital First Media out in Denver. And this was like 2013. This right before, legalization was coming into fruition for adult use in the first American adult use market, right? Which the irony never escapes me, because going from California to Colorado to get into legal cannabis. But yeah, that's where she said, I see a hero path for you here. And when I got on, I was doing back-end operations for a website called The Cannabis that friend Ricardo Baca had come up with. He also was from Scripps, worked for DFM. And then I became the GM. And then later on, Weed Maps, they liked what I was doing. They said, we want you to head up, all of media for us here at Weed Maps, which was, well, it still is the largest tech company in the space. And like I said, that was 10 years ago when I started that journey, and kind of the rest is history. And I felt like a bit of an OG back in the day, but now I really feel like one, not just because of the gray hair and the lack of hair that I have and all this time here, but just because that is, like we were talking about earlier, it's kind of dog years. Like there's a lot of people that they come in and they think that, it's still a green rush, as we say, but it's not easy. It is challenging. Very few people are getting rich because there's so many hands in the pot. Pardon the pun, there's a lot of those in the space, but just alone here in California, there's the flower's taxed 6 times from seed to sale. So if you can imagine, in some of these markets, 40 upward, Washington, I think upward of 47% of every dollar going to taxes, it's tough. So you have to be passionate. And yes, being a cancer survivor, I did start shifting more towards Eastern medicine from Western medicine. Wasn't so much a fan of petroleum-based solutions and petri dish solutions. Mother Nature, I think, in my opinion, not to get all spiritual, but I really do think that Mother Nature has the answers. Like they have a lot of remedies for us. I mean, you being in Costa Rica, firsthand, like you've got one of the most lush ecosystems in the world right there. And you see how Mother Nature works when not intervened by humans. And so cannabis is one. Cannabis, ginger, turmeric, echinacea. There's so many different natural remedies I use for health. Even breaking down the cannabis plant, I use CBG for anti-inflammatory. I use CBN to help with sleep. I use CBD to help with pain. So I really do look at it as a medical first. But obviously, I enjoy the side effects too. So that's where the adult use comes in. And yes, I'm more of an evening consumer. And yes, I like to indulge with friends versus, to your point, alcohol, which is definitely the biggest social lubricant in this world. Everywhere, every continent I go to, it's so acceptable and so in everyone's face. Which on another note, I gave up drinking back in 2019 because I not only got bored of it, but I really started recognizing that it was more of a poison than it was a remedy. And, when you're a cancer survivor, you kind of do get into that, my body's my temple kind of mode. And so that's actually where I've been. So yeah, it's been a fun ride, but it definitely wasn't where I started, my professional career, to say the least.
Who would have thought? Well, I think it's important to support the things that matter to us, right?
Exactly.
I started becoming vocal about being a patient a few years ago, because growing up in Virginia and then doing business in Washington D.C. Right now you go to D.C., the whole town smells like weed, but that was not the case. If you had a gram in your pocket, you were charged with possession of a controlled substance on federal property. You know how serious it is to catch a federal charge for a gram of weed? I mean, come on.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? On federal probation, going to a federal courthouse. I mean, it's, and then all of a sudden DC became, mini Amsterdam, and the whole city literally smells like weed. People don't even remember. I'm like, man, we used to be so paranoid. We had to be, because you were going to go to federal prison. I mean,
it's changed a lot. It really has.
Wrap your brain around that for a minute, right? So being vocal about being a patient was kind of a big deal, and I was born. My dad was exposed to some stuff in Vietnam, and I was born with a rare congenital birth defect. And I was told by a team of doctors at 15 months old that I wouldn't live more than 20 years. And I'm like Benjamin Button in reverse. I've been 5'10" since I was in 4th grade.
Wow.
Grew super fast. I'm not shrinking, luckily, but
Yeah.
not yet anyway, right? But I've had a bunch of spinal surgeries. I've had a bunch of pain in my life. And there's people even in my own life who would tell me to go take pain medicine and stuff. I'm like, so you want me to be suicidal and depressed and like literally out of my gourd versus, Medicating
And you
with a
have an
plant?
endocannabinoid system, like literally you have a system in your body, having these receptors that are actually open to accepting cannabis. You talk to any smart scientist or hopefully any educated doctor, and you ask them if we have a system that processes ibuprofen. We don't. That's why you can take 800 milligrams a day, because the uptake's about 50% on average for these synthetic pain medicines. So it really isn't the way to go. And it's unfortunate because and it's not our generation. It's not our generation. I mean, it goes all the way back to the silent generation, those that are in their 80s now. Those were the ones that were exposed to this pivotal shift from Eastern to Western medicine, because we used to have those natural remedies even here in the States. It's not just an Asian thing or a European thing or a South
Totally.
American thing.
Right.
It was a global thing that Mother Nature had those solutions for us before, again, petroleum came into the equation and petri dishes came into the equation. And if we can't patent it, we don't want it on the shelves because we can't own it.
'Cause we can't own
Everyone
it.
knows, not to get
Yeah.
on the soapbox, but that's why I'm an advocate. I'm not an activist.
Same.
I'm open hand, not closed fist. And I lead with education, not forcing ideologies.
Oh, I like
But
that.
we need to open our eyes to the system, and we need to turn the system away and go, no, I want something healthier, natural, and better for me as a human,
Mm-hmm.
So,
Well,
yeah.
I think it's really important for older white guys to stand up and have a voice, because listen, you guys in a lot of ways run a lot of stuff. And so, we
Yep.
need advocates that look like you in these spaces and who are
Yeah.
respected as professionals, saying, hey, come on, like enough with this already, because that's what it takes, right? Like allyship happens in closed doors room. It doesn't, I like what you said about open hand, not closed fist. I do see myself as a bit of an anarchist at heart. So I do love a good protest. Don't get me wrong, but like the real work happens in the closed doors rooms.
Yeah.
It doesn't always happen with a sign in the street. Not
Very true.
demeaning that kind of work, but like if you want your white friends to be less racist, then talk to them about it when you're in an all white room, not on
Yeah.
Facebook. Right, because
Yep.
talking about on Facebook isn't going to change anything. Actually, being in the space. So
Yep.
let's talk about the company. So I'm pretty fascinated by this because you're a manufacturing company and you make these bags. And if anybody's ever been in the weed world for real, other than just being a consumer, you've seen these bags before. They're pretty amazing. They create longer shelf life for the products. They protect it, which is a really big deal because, to your point, it's not easy to get rich in weed, and a lot of people think it is, but it's like they're like orchids. They're like delicate little flowers. Like if you
It's
don't
true.
know how to speak to plants, you're never going to grow. Like anybody can grow weed. Very few people can grow good weed, right?
Yep.
And so, and then you have all these other things, natural wildfires that mess up your. I mean, it's always something,
Yeah.
right? It's very difficult. And so then when you do have a good crop and then you dry it and you cure it and you get it all right and then it molds in the bag, you're like, Jesus, what
Yeah.
next? It's always something. So these bags have been really instrumental in elongating shelf life and maintaining the quality of the product. So can you talk to me a little bit about how do
Definitely.
you go from being a manufacturer of the bag to being like working directly with so many different huge brands like that?
For sure, for sure. So, we were the interesting thing first off, and there's other people in the packaging space. There's other people in active atmospheric space. People that are focused on the packaging, we'll say, or the post harvest. And a lot of those companies come from other industries. They don't come from this community. I used to work for one that was a bunch of, you talk about old white guys, Scotch cigars and let's see how much money we can suck from the cannabis industry. Like it was so not me that it was bittersweet, but I left because I helped make that company successful, but it also was going down a path and had a culture and core value that didn't align with me. That's not us. We come from the community. My CEO and founder, he was a caregiver for his older brother who has cerebral palsy. He's quadriplegic. So he wanted to find a way not just to be more efficient in post-harvest processing, but in maintaining the quality and consistency, which is really something that's detrimental to maintain the potency of the plant. And again, for any of our medical patient listeners out there, the potency matters. Like if you don't have that level of potency, then you're not going to have the proper medicine dosage when consuming. So yeah, he is like, I got to do something. Luckily, his family had come from the packaging background, and he is familiar with passive atmospheric modification, which is not to geek out, but I can give a great example. If you've ever bought ready-made lettuce in a bag where it's all nice and crispy and green, and the celery is still crunchy, and the carrots still, and the radishes, it's this whole. A lot of people think that the way that biomass is preserved in that ready serve bag is by some sort of noble gas flushing, like nitrogen or argon is a good example. That's not quite the case. It's actually the packaging it's in that creates that perfect environment. So we knew that we could do something, a little bit of reverse engineering, a lot of time and energy, but something that was specific to the physiology of this plant. Because obviously this plant, we joke around about being lettuce or broccoli, you know, all the slang terms that we use for this, but it couldn't be any further from that. The level of relative humidity is substantially less. You know, what that ambient environment needs to be is substantially different. But yes, we came up with this technology, and we very much pride ourselves on being a technology company. It happens to have that technology in packaging. And so you point out some of the great attributes, but really what it started out as is you can auto cure your flower in our bags. So you don't need to use jars. You don't need to use turkey bags. You don't need to use totes. You don't need to add any silly humidity packs. You don't need humidity packs in the first place if you have your flower at the right relative humidity. But you literally, you dry it, you trim it, you put it into our bags, you seal it for 2 weeks and let it auto cure. So no more burping your jars, no more babysitting. And the nice thing about it is it does create that perfect environment, a CO2 rich environment. So the oxygen is leached out, the moisture balances within. So it's a great vessel for storage. Like I've got, you know, this is a 1/4 pound bag from last year's run. So I've got, you know, 1/4 pound, you can see the flour in the bottom. So I just put it in here, just heat sealed the top. And this is actually, like I said, it's technically 2 seasons old. So this is from the end of 2022. And it's still in a great state because of the atmosphere that we create in that bag. So not all bags are created equal. It's not just a bag. But it's definitely something that, like we discussed before the call, you know, you have to lead with education, just like anything else in this space. You know, so we do a lot of education, and that's where content really comes in, is helping people understand that stop banging your rocks, you know, stop banging your clothes down on the rocks by the river. There's something called a washing machine. It's in your garage. Start using it. You know, that's the same kind of mentality. It's like, hey, just because you use glass jars for decades, like I did as a grower, being from NorCal, I mean, all of us had our Masons. I was like, are you sure this is what I've always done? Is this really? And then I did side-by-side testing before coming on here. And I'm like, holy shit, it works. Like I can support and endorse this company because it actually does what it says.
Well, you got to bring me some of these bags when you come to Costa Rica in a few months, because I'm curious to see, you know, this high humidity here is going to be a real challenge.
We work even better. That's the crazy part. We have some huge fans in Jamaica, Florida, Georgia, Hawaii, especially in like, you know, like Haiku and in some parts that are higher moisture. But even over in Thailand, we have quite a presence in Thailand, because the interesting thing is that higher humidity, it doesn't impede into the packaging. It creates this balance where you have that 58 to 62 inside, but it doesn't let the outside come in. And you're right, because that's when microbials pop off. You have too much humidity, just like a wet towel that you leave on the floor, you know, it's you know what happens.
The biggest thing we battle here is mold.
Yeah.
Like literally, like all my spices, I open up my garlic powder, a week later it's clumped up. I got like anti-humidity packs in my spice drawer, you know.
Yeah,
like,
desiccants. Yeah, you have to, or using rice grains, or you know, whatever. What we use, saltine crackers in the sugar when we were kids. Like all those hacks, you need them in a high humidity environment.
You do, and like everything is in a jar here, and you know you got to open it and close it right away. And I mean, you can't even have more than an ounce because it's going to mold even in a jar. Like it's a real problem here. And just with everything, clothing, everything, it's just like you have to have a fan going, you have to have a window open. I mean, 96% humidity. I never knew. I lived in DC. We don't really deal with that. You know, I'm like, oh, okay, got it. You know, so let's talk about content. How is the company using content marketing, and who are your clients are B2B, right? Or
our client, we have a healthy balance. You know, it's interesting because as a manufacturer, it's quite unique. So we have B2B and direct to consumer, D2C, which marketing manages. So my department manages that. And then we have an extensive sales team that manages the B2B relationships. But content is king. I mean, of course, coming from doing digital media for a decade, you wouldn't be surprised for me to say that. But it really is, you know, it really is something that powers your SEO. It really is something that powers your engagement, your time on site. It mitigates your bounce or your out rates, you know, so it is very relevant. And at the end of the day, all of us want to learn. Like you said, like, God, these bags, they sound great. I want to hear more. I want to learn more. And so we really do lead with content. And I take a hub and spoke approach. So kind of that wagon wheel of you have the content, you use your push and pull marketing to support that, but all roads lead back to Rome, right? So all roads lead back to my website. And it's nothing against, I love our audience. We've got just shy of 30,000 on Instagram. We got several thousand on YouTube and LinkedIn. And, I love those audiences. But one thing I learned as a digital marketer, gosh, back in the late 2000s when social media really came into play is, those things can change. Because, for those that are a little bit older, you remember it was Friendster, then it was MySpace, then it was Facebook, then it was Instagram, then it was Snapchat, then it was that constantly evolved. So it always surprised me people put time and energy, especially in content, to drive traffic to an island that has your billboard on it, but that's not really your home, right? This is my home. This is my website. So we definitely do content, and we have some programs. We have the Behind the Bag series. It's purely editorial. So to your point, some of the brands we work with, big and small. I love the cottage style growers from back home in NorCal to some of the scaled growers like Legacy and Doja. But we'll reach out to them and we'll say, we know it's hard for you to advertise because you're plant touching, you're tier one. So there's a lot of things we get our hands slapped on even as an ancillary, but they're even under stricter guidelines because they have, these organizations and entities that govern them. So we reach out to them and say, hey, we want to tell your story. So I'll have one of my freelance contacts. Even though I'm a writer, I still write for MG Magazine. I just did a 3-part series for Garden Culture. I've been a writer since 2005, but I don't want it to be at all biased. So I connect them with a freelance writer. We have an article that's written up. We try to get some visual, whether it be video or static pictures. And then we publish it and we push it out to our audience so that they can see and learn about this brand that otherwise they might not come across because of the restrictions, again, like you're at a federal level, that's restricting a lot of what's going on. So we very much depend on content to cultivate our audience and to educate them along the way.
I love that you say that because not enough people are driving back to their website. And then if they are driving back to their website, they don't have a lead magnet or email capture. And if they do have that, they're not tagging the emails right. And then they're not responding, reaching back out to them. And then meanwhile, people are like spending all day on social media strategies. And, we have like 20,000 followers on Instagram. I put a post up. They're like 7 people saw it. I'm like, great. So glad I spent all that time building all those followers organically.
Right. And good old Meta, they flipped that switch. That was back in the early 2010s when they're like, wait, we can monetize and make you pay to reach your own audience that you spent the time and energy to cultivate and to get on your page. So that's why I was like, this is BS. I'm not like, never mind Meta, LinkedIn, X, whatever. Like, I'm not going to build an audience for you to make money off of. I want to build an audience to educate them about my product. And eventually, if they make a purchase, that's great. They're the ones making the educated decision. But yeah, to inject a middleman, I saw that early on, I guess, because I did a lot of digital media in the automotive sector. And I saw, working for companies like Auto Trader, we created the funnel, but we were monetizing down the funnel. Then you had companies like GM, they're like, wait, we can get in front of you via SEM and some clever SEO, and then they don't even have to go down your funnel. They can come straight to where they belong, our website or our dealer site. So there were some things that I'm very thankful for being a digital marketer for a decade before getting into this space, because it was a major benefit to be able to face some of the challenges and restrictions in this space. Because I've never been, this is more strict than gun advertising or alcohol advertising.
You can advertise the craziest crap online, but not weed. God forbid weed. It's really like, some of the stuff I've seen online, I'm like, this is okay, but
It surprised me every day. And just like we were talking about, like alcohol, it's the social lubricant. Every continent, every country I land in, it's every step of the way, at the airport, on the airplane,
they're like, welcome
at social events. Yeah,
have a drink.
Alcohol. I'm like, I'm surprised there aren't more alcoholics in the world, to be honest. And it's a poison. It's a pleasure, but everything in moderation. And look at what it's done to society, along with opioids and other things that, we go on forever. But it is unfortunate that those things that are natural and actually healthy for us are oftentimes suppressed. And again, I think that's probably the true definition of capitalism in full effect. But, it's an interesting bear. Yeah.
Well, like living in Costa Rica, when I go to the doctor, first of all, I can WhatsApp her, right? And I can go to the pharmacy without a prescription. Now, I'm not getting like opioids or anything like that, but like for basic stuff,
Yeah.
And it's just so much different because it's Eastern and Western medicine. She's giving me maybe some antibiotics, but then she's also giving me the little pills with the
Tinctures and stuff
drops,
like that.
you know.
Yeah.
And so
Yep.
it's like I love that balance, and I think, and she's like, go home and eat some ginger, eat some turmeric, like not
Yes.
just like go home and suck down some Vicks and Dayquil or whatever, you
Yep.
know what I mean? Like,
Exactly
God,
true.
isn't this what Hunter S. Thompson did every day? Like I got to work, man. You know what I mean? Like, what are we doing? So, what I'd like from you is like, what piece of advice would you give people in the cannabis space who are really struggling with their content marketing or getting their message out? Like, what
Yes.
would be your biggest piece of advice for them to lean in on this year?
Gosh, I would say for this year, just really be cognizant and aware of not just the demographics that you're approaching, because obviously that matters. You want to know your core persona, but geographically be cognizant of what's going on, because while technically 46 states in the union have some level of legal cannabis, like even Texas has a medical program and no one knows that. They have, several dispensaries, very strict program with low dose, but still, but being cognizant of where and who you're addressing and approaching, and then putting the right message in front of that right audience, because it's unfortunate. A lot of people, I don't know what it is. It's this, I guess we could blame it on the millennials or the Z generation, but this instant gratification. I know Google and other websites perpetuated that. Oh, I want the answer now. I want whatever I'm looking for. I want it now.
Yeah.
But it's really interesting because the professional society has really embraced that. I mean, I'm surprised. I'll be on LinkedIn, someone who looks like we're aligned, maybe they're in marketing or maybe they're in business, in a category that's aligned with ours. And then they come in straight for the kill. I feel like I'm on a swipe right app, right? They just like, I get connected with them. Hey, let me tell you about my product. I'm like,
dude,
why don't you ask me what my needs are, or get to know me a little bit better before you try to sell me on something? So the approach that you take, and again, that's where I'd say content versus going straight for conversion. And as old school as the funnel is, it's relevant. Like, spend a little bit more time on TOMA, spend a little more time on that awareness, that interest, and allow them to fall into intent instead of forcing them into intent and ultimately conversion. Another thing I'd say is being cognizant of what the long play is. To your point, don't just lead the horse to water, but explain to them why it's advantageous to continue to drink here, because brand loyalty is at an all-time low. You and I both know that. I mean, Amazon doesn't encourage, brand loyalty, let alone any other platform that people are purchasing from. So to give them an incentive, and there has to be that USP, right? Our unique selling proposition, beyond doing something that no one else does by being able to eliminate, having to manually cure your flower. But there's more beyond just we're a bag. Again, we are a brand, yes, but we are a community. We're a part of the community. So that's, again, while I'm out there in the field and people are like, don't you have a team that can do this? Yeah, I've got 4 or 5 people that can do this on my team, but I want to be out there and I want them to see the face behind the brand, just like I want my CEO to be out there and be the face behind the brand, because people are really relating to individuals, not entities. And that's the big corporations' faults, right? They're the ones that, trust Procter and Gamble, trust Johnson and Johnson. Well, as long as you're putting asbestos and talcum powder and killing women and giving them cancer, I'm sorry, you know what? I really don't trust you as an entity. I trust the individual that says, I use this myself and I recommend for you to use it as well, because I'm a healthy middle-aged guy that doesn't have cancer again, So that's what I'd recommend, is being very cognizant of your message, but where it's going and who it's going to, definitely be aware of that as well.
I love that. Yeah, they're going in for the kill thing on LinkedIn and all that. That's why my approach. I'm like, I want to get in front of more people. It could be a little lonely sometimes living in Costa Rica after being in DC and surrounded by people and managing all these people and all these studios and stuff. And now I'm like, okay, I need to hang out with some more people. But I use humor, right? I'm like, let's see if this is a good fit, because if you respond, we're probably going to get along. We can start from there.
Yeah,
and then if nothing else, it's a new relationship, right? I think everything in life is based on the quality of your relationships, personally and professionally. And I think
and your approach was like that. Like you said, your approach was very, very, I'm the same way. I'm very passive, easy going, hey, I'd love to work here at some point. It's great getting to know you, etc. But I'm never like, buy our products, drink our Kool-Aid.
Because I might not even like you. I want to know for sure that I like you and we get along, because then we could do great business together, or I refer you people or whatever, right? You never know. Like, you just never know what will come of a relationship. Maybe we'll be having a cocktail at the beach in a couple months when you're in town, right? Anything
Yep.
is possible, right? And I think that's the beautiful thing about the world is like give an opportunity for that relationship because maybe we'll just be friends. Maybe we'll do business together. Maybe none of that, but like
Yep.
the whole just going straight for your wallet. It's like, I mean, I get messages, people are like, did you know that short form video can enhance? I'm like, yeah, I do, because we sell that. Like, fuck's sake,
Oh
man.
my gosh,
Like,
people, that
pay
floors
attention.
me. And I know I did my selling years are, well, I mean, everyone's still a seller to a certain extent, but I mean, my years of selling were my 20s, late teens, 20s, early 30s. I was never like that. I mean, I did consultative selling evidently before it was cool. I'm like, here, let me state the facts and let you make an educated decision on what would be the best to solve your problem, right? And to your point, people come in and they have this, coffee is for closers mentality of like, my money's in your wallet. And it's like,
Whoa.
nothing that has to do with you has to do with me. To your point, let's see if we even want to do business together, because we might not even cross that chasm to the actual opportunity.
Well, and listen, not all clients are created equally. I've fired some clients. I've met some people and gone, cool business, but no, thank you.
Yeah,
I don't want to work with you, right? For whatever reason. So
true.
it's like dating, It's like
It really is.
let's not go like, hey, you want to get married? Like, I don't know. Can we have coffee first? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, what's happening?
Yep, I did a post like that on LinkedIn, and I was the same because I tell people from as a mentor, I've been in management for 28 years now. It's crazy to say. I've mentored a lot of people, and that's I said the personal is not that different from the professional. Excuse me. Everything's based off of trust and communication. If you don't trust me in that rep of this company, and we don't properly communicate, then how are we supposed to get anything done?
And if I
So
don't like you, I don't want to see you win. And I want to see all my clients win. I want to be doing stuff behind the scenes for them that they don't even know because I want to see them win.
yep.
I want to be mentioning their names in rooms that they're not in because I want to see them win. But if you're not my kind of people, might not want to see you win. And I don't want clients like that. I want to genuinely be like really rooting for everybody I'm working with because like what's the point, right? Like what is the point?
True.
I think if after the pandemic we haven't learned that, then what are we even doing? You know what I mean? Like,
Very true. Very true.
well,
Mhm.
listen, Lance, I want to be aware of the time and all of that because we're coming up on the top of the hour. But I usually do all these fun segments and stuff. But our conversation
Yeah.
was really great, and I don't think we really needed any of that today. I thought it was very interesting, and I definitely will connect with you for sure. But before
Cool.
we go, and we will have all your links and everything in the show notes. But if people are
Perfect.
interested and would like to connect with you, what's the best way for them to do that?
Yeah, the best way would be for the company, it's growbags.com or growbags on all the social media. For myself personally, and like you said, for some people who are having challenges getting into the industry, sustaining themselves in the industry, I do love mentoring people. I love helping people, especially passionate people who are here to make a difference. So feel free to reach out to me, lancelambert.com. Will take you to my LinkedIn. 805 Lance is my socials. And yeah, we need more passionate people in this space. And one thing I will say is, consuming cannabis for decades does not make you an expert in the industry, but being passionate and bringing some level of expertise, bringing digital media, bringing marketing. People are coming from HR, from sales, from the scientific community, from the medical community, from the logistics, the security communities. There are people coming from all different sectors to this industry and being a part of this community. But the real synergy is all those people are passionate. Like they're passionate about something. It doesn't necessarily have to be about the plant, but be passionate about what you're doing and be in it to win it. And remember, this is an us and we, not I and me. This is very much a collaborative effort. So
I love that. I love that so much. Well, Lance, this was going to a great conversation. I knew it was going to be good. I was like, "Oh, Lance is on the calendar today. That's great." I'm excited because I've been, like I said, I've been following you on LinkedIn for a few weeks now, and I'm like,
yeah,
I
you saw me travel
appreciate.
around the world. You're probably like, this guy never gets off the road.
I know. I'm like, I can't believe I'm on his calendar. Honestly, I was like, this is a busy
Yeah,
guy. So I really appreciate it, and I will contact you offline for some of the other endeavors that I mentioned. But
yeah, I do for sure.
yeah. But thank you so much for taking time to meet with me today. It was really a pleasure. And thank you for tuning in today to Camp Content. I hope this was a great conversation. We talk a lot about websites at Heartcast Media and how important it is to have a good website. It's actually why we started designing websites, because when we started working with you guys, we realized that a lot of you don't have good websites. So it was by necessity. But the website really is your most important landing page. It's not going to go out of business. It's not going to go defunct. It's not going to get sued by the FCC. CDC or whoever. Hopefully, if you do, call me. I'd love to hear about it.
ADA compliancy matters.
Yeah, it does. It does. But bring it back to your own site. Bring them into your email list. Bring them into the conversation. Bring them into the family. And so that's some of the best advice I've heard on this show yet is old school, man. Keep it old school and bring them into the fold and keep them close, right? So thank you for tuning in. And if you found this content valuable, please comment or share on LinkedIn or just hit us up. We'd love to hear from you. And until then, be excellent to each other. And I will see you on the internet. All right. Thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of Camp Content. This is Molly.
And this is Matt.
And we are Heartcast Media, a.k.a. Camp Content, and we appreciate all of your support. If you found this content valuable, please comment on social media, LinkedIn, wherever you find us, and we will make sure to comment back.
And be sure to go on and subscribe and like on your favorite platforms, Spotify, iTunes, YouTube, you name it. Leave us that subscription. Leave us that good review.
We'll love you forever. So until next time, be excellent to each other, and we'll see you next week.
Produced by Heartcast Media.